Hello everybody. So as you guys can see, I have been playing Lich, and this is my Aberroth kill that you're seeing in the background. This is a build that I'm super excited about. Basically, after I had finished playing Paladin, I was super excited about the class. A lot of the new things that they're doing made it very powerful and very exciting. But there were a couple things that left me wanting, right? I wanted to create a really strong single target boss killer, something that I could fight Aberroth with. And so I was thinking about builds that I've played in the past, builds that could meet the mark, and I decided that the Stygian Warlock that I played before had a really good opportunity to be a Stygian Lich, right? I played this back in Cycle 1.1, and I saw how powerful it was, and I realized, I get why everyone plays Stygian Cole on Lich. It has a lot better crit support than Warlock did. I was just looking for something that fit the idea at the time of what I wanted to do. So I arrived at Lich as the way. And as you can see, this kill is super fast. I'm really tanky. I do tons of damage. My single target is great. I'm critting most of the time. Even though I'm playing low life, like my effective tankiness is absolutely insane. I got my first red ring after over 1,000 hours. I got my first red ring, which is awesome. And then I also got a second red ring the very same day. So very cool. This build is super exciting. It scales off of a bunch of different things. Stygian Cole scales off of current mana, so you want to increase your base mana as much as possible and stay at max mana as much as possible. And it scales off of intelligence really well. You get frequency per intelligence, so you want to be intelligence stacking and mana stacking. And having two different things that you're stacking is really good for damage. It's a necrotic skill that crits. We're also running Wrong Warp for that increased damage with move speed, because in Reaper form you automatically get a lot of move speed. So we're doing that as well. Red rings, of course, because we're stat stacking so much. I have like 150 or 160 intelligence. So I'm like almost all the way there for the 180, right? So yeah, it's super exciting, the things that are going on with this build. I've taken it to the point that I want to take it for now. I'm going to farm up the rest of the items on a better mono-clearing character. So I want to preface this by saying this character is very good at clearing bosses. And so if I want a boss killer, if I'm trying to find a specific boss item, I'll run that instead. But if I'm trying to play monos, I'll go for a mono character instead. So I'm going to create characters specific for each. So this is what I would call a very good boss killer. All right, let's go through the build, shall we? So we'll go through the skills, passives, and itemization. But quickly, we need to note that Stygian Cole is our catalyst, and it casts Stygian beams instead of the drain life effect. And we want to scale intelligence and current mana, so basically max mana, in order to scale out damage with this. So remember that as we go through this build. Drain life. It is the spell that we cast in order to trigger our Stygian beams. We are turning it into a cast because it's traditionally a channeled skill and giving it more duration. 2 points here ideally, but with my mana sustain, 1 point felt good. And then we have a ton of more multipliers. So Empowered Drain gives us 25%, Lay Waste gives us 40%, and Unholy Mask gives us 63%. And that 63% is conditional. 3% more damage per stack of damned, so you want 21 stacks to get max damage, but when you're fighting a boss, it's really easy to get all those stacks. Then, because it costs like 65 mana to cast, we want a mana generator. And we are using Rip Blood for that because we can turn it into a 0 mana skill. It generates 9 mana per cast basically, and it gives us global spell damage on hit, and we're getting like 150 to 170. So what that looks like, pulling up the tab over here, we're at 58 base, right? Doing our full combo. Yeah, so we're at 150 right now. 170. And remember, it's for 8 seconds, so you're going to be at your max most of the time, right? So we're at 170 pretty reasonably. 150 to 170 is like a safe estimation. So that's what Rip Blood does. We generate a lot of base spell damage. We have a little bit of more multiplier on here, but it's not here for damage. So, and we're turning it into necrotic. So that's Rip Blood in a nutshell. Now let's go to our buff skills, right? So that was specifically our damage skills, and that's how we're managing our mana spender, mana gainer pattern. Now we have Death Seal. Death Seal is here to turn us into low life with Deadlock, which locks us at 33% of our maximum health. 35% is the low life threshold, so 33 is well within that range. And then Death Seal itself removes all our ward, right? And then it casts Death Waves, and we also get more damage equal to the percent of health missing. So we get 66% more damage. Then we get increased damage for our missing health, and then we get armor for our flat health missing. So we want to scale our max health so that when we cut out down the percentage, we get as much of it into armor as possible. Then we have Death Waves, frequency. This is basically how we clear. We don't have that much clear, so this is how we clear. And then we are just increasing our duration, stopping the health drain, giving us haste, and then giving us a little bit more damage with applying Damn to ourselves and getting more damage per stack of Damned. So that's Seal. Let's now move on to Reperform. So this is our next big buff skill. Turning into Reperform gives us an extra health bar. When we go to 0, we turn back into our normal self, and we lose all the buffs from Reperform. And when we're in Reperform, we decay health. So we want to stay in Reperform as long as possible. We want a little bit of move speed, and then we take increased damage because it's 100% increased damage and 100% increased crit chance. Pretty solid. And then 100% increased damage at low life, which we are almost all the time at. And then we get some move speed and cast speed over here with Rapid Destruction. So these are mandatory basically for our build. And then we also want armor per point of intelligence because we are intelligence stacking, remember, with our Stygian Coal. Our frequency is based off of our intelligence. So intelligence stacking, this gives us even more armor. So we had armor for missing health before, and then we get armor per intelligence here. So we have a lot of base armor. So with a couple increased multipliers, we get just a metric ton of armor, right? So Reperform gives us a ton of armor. This is basically our build. We have a couple points because we had 4 extra points. We put it into necrotic damage and haunting for chance of Marked for Death. Marked for Death is useful because it gives, I believe it shreds resistances. Okay, that shows but it shreds resistances by 10, I think, when they have it, so it's pretty strong. Otherwise, there is something of note, which is that Reaper's Ascendance is something we're not taking. It gives us 1% increased spell damage per point, stacking up to 25 times, so 4 points, 25 times, 100% increased spell damage. This would be nice to take, but it takes 3 points over here to get to this, and then additional 7 points for the full combo. So it can be up to 10 points, minimum up to 7 points, and since we only have 4 points, it's not possible for us to get. So if we could get a +4, that would be something I would want to get into. So if I had a +4 to Reperform, so like a tier 4 Reperform plus a tier 7 Reperform plus tier 7 health on my body armor, then I would look into this. But right now, the base stats are more important, so it's just a little bit of damage we're missing out on. So that's Reperform. And then Transplant. So this is our utility skill of choice. We're running Wrong Warp, and I'll get into Wrong Warp later. But we're turning it into Necrotic, making it Fear. Fear is useful for interrupting bosses, and it like interrupts their combos, which is kind of cool. It applies Bone Curse. We cast Rip Blood off of it. We get Frenzy and Haste, and we get Bone Armor, which is 8% less damage taken over time for 4 seconds, and then we increase the duration to 8 seconds. And it's on a 3.8 second cooldown, so a 4 second cooldown, so we pretty much always have Bone Armor up. It's very powerful, very powerful. So those are our skills, very straightforward. Let's get into our passives, right? So we're going Acolyte, Intelligence everywhere we can. We have a little bit of armor here. We're not doing like the 6 points that I normally do when I go into Warlock because we have so much base armor from our Reaper's Form and Death Seal, right? So we don't need that much base armor. And then we want to increase our max health as much as possible, so we're going Stolen Vitality. Then Warlock, this is our mana class basically. We get mana regen, chance of mana regen on hits. We're doing so many hits, so we pretty much have this every 3 seconds, which is awesome, right? 13 mana gain. This keeps us at max mana. And then we also have Occultist Mind, which gives us max mana per intelligence. So stacking our intelligence, not only does it apply to our increased damage on our skills, not only does it apply to our frequency on our Stygian Beams, now it also gives us more mana, which is our base damage on our Stygian Beams. So very powerful threshold node right here. Okay, in Lich, we want to get as much intelligence as possible, and Lich has a bunch of intelligence, so you get 10 points over here from Apocryphia, you get 16 points over here from Crippling Insight, and 20 points over here from Mind over Body. So that's a total of 46 points. That's a lot of intelligence just built into the tree. A lot of points allocated as well, but also a lot of intelligence. Otherwise, we're in the tree for increased sources of damage, increased crit chance, and then necrotic stuff. So Dance with Death, 40% increased damage, 120% increased damage when you're below 35%, which is your low life threshold, which you're at most of the time, so pretty good. Grasp with Faith, increased necrotic, pretty good. Deathbringer, cast speed and crit chance, pretty good. Clairvoyant, crit multi, we need it. Wands of the Fallen, increased spell damage, Ageless Aesthetic, increased cast speed, move speed, and leech. And then necrotic energy for the base damage and 3 plagues for the pen. So that's why we're going into those. There are a couple things that we're not taking that are really good, so I want to talk about them before we move on. And that is Elixir of Death can give you, with the maximum investment, 50% less physical damage and necrotic damage taken. Solid. And Bed of Souls, which is Vitality. So that could also give us health in our resist. Solid. And then Enclosing Wounds gives us increased damage. It's 14% per point, where this is Wands of the Fallen is 10% per point, but it also like has a bit of a downside. So, you know, it is what it is. Those are the other options you can take, and I would say are very good options. Okay, so that's the passives. Then let's go through itemization. Yeah, there's a lot of really good items here. So let's go through it. Wrong Warp for the cooldown, 3% spell damage per 1% increased move speed. So if you look at our move speed, we're at 123, so that gives us 360% increased spell damage over here. It gives us 31% chance to gain haste on hit. It also gives us Chrono Warp, which gives us cast speed, and we get Chrono Warp by casting Transplant. So very solid. Its base gives us mana and spell damage and minus mana cost, so very solid wand for what we want to do. Then we get Decayed Skull. Decayed Skull gives us our percent more armor, which we want, and it gives us a good set of base armor, so very solid there. 20% of void and necrotic damage taken is physical damage, so remember, armor applies to physical damage at 100% effectiveness, and it applies to all other damage at 70% effectiveness, so that's basically making us tankier. And then 80% increased necrotic damage. I slammed tier 7 health on there because our health is important, and then increased mana on there as well. Nihilis, I farmed for this a lot. You want a tier 7 mana on here, and +2 to all skills, 70% more armor is solid. If you can get like 10% or more to all res, that's ideal. And then the base, you obviously want more increased health and mana and move speed than what I got, because it's a pretty min roll, but otherwise very solid. Null Portent. So there's a lot of different body armors you can use. I figured this has a tier 6 health as the base. I put tier 7 health on there. It gives us some more leech stuff. It gives us some fizz res and 1% less damage taken per 2% resistance above the normal resistance cap, up to 20%. So that means you want to get up to 115% on your resistances. I only have my necrotic there. Ideally, I can get more elsewhere. So it's a good place, a good source of reduced damage for the future of my build. Stygian Coal gives us intelligence, necrotic damage. I put spell critical strike chance on here because we don't have that much crit. And as you can see, I'm only at 52% right now. And if I go into Reperform and Best Seal and all that, I'm at like 63% at my best. So I put tier 7 spell crit chance on there, which is solid. Brewmaster's Buckle. You want health on here. It's very solid. It gives you potions, endurance, vitality, and max health into endurance. So as you can see, I have 600 endurance right now, and when I go low life, I'm at 900 health, and when I pop a potion, it takes me to 900 endurance threshold. So I'm pretty much almost always in endurance threshold, which is awesome. Red Ring, all attributes, all res, 10% less damage taken if you have at least 180 total attributes, so I have well over that, so 10% less damage taken, and move speed, solid. Grasp of the Blood Mage, it gives you 23% of hit damage taken from bosses and rare enemies dealt over 4 seconds, so it makes you tankier. It also gives you 4% base critical strike chance for spells, which is solid. Blood of the Exiles, I only have 1, which is funny. I have more Red Rings than I have Blood of the Exiles. And it gives you all the stats you want. It gives you move speed, so very solid pair of boots. I think it's best in slot here. And Grimoire of Necrotic Elixirs, best in slot here. Easy to get with LP. It has potion synergy with Brewmaster's Buckle, and it gives you base necrotic damage alongside vitality, alongside less void, necrotic, and poison damage taken on potion use. So it makes you tankier, it gives you more damage, and it's easy to get with LP. So there you go. Idols, you want to prioritize health on all of these, and on the base, crit multi, and whatever resistances you don't have. So obviously, more resistances gives you less damage taken. So those are your 3 priorities for your idols: health, resistances, and then crit, in that order. Blessings, mana, armor, all res, and critical strike chance, because we're not crit. If we were crit capped, this would be crit multi, but we're not crit capped, so this is crit chance. That's all there is to it. Okay, so those are the items, passives, and skills to make this build work. I don't know why I said it like that. I'm so sorry. But This is a very fun build to play. It's a very good boss killer. I would implore you guys to play it. I'm going to push this build to be Aberroth in the future, probably more towards the middle of the season. I'm going to play other builds for now that are better at clearing monos, but this is a very powerful build. I'm only level 93, so as I level up, I'll get more base stats, and my build will be even stronger. So there's room for this build to grow for sure, and I'm going to take it to try to beat Aberroth in the future. But for now, we're going to park it while we focus on monolith clears in order to build the inventory we need to beat him. So that's my plan for the future. I hope you guys try this build out. It's a great boss killer. Peace out. Have a good season. I hope you guys are having fun.